Hi there, my name is Chuck Spicer. I run a blog called MTG The Journey, and I've been conversing back and forth with Kevin for a while about doing some video series for him and some content for Rogue Deck Builder. Um, First of all, I'll just start off with a little bit of an introduction as to who I am and when I started playing and things of that nature, kind of like what Michael Y did with his last series, which I really appreciated, and a lot of thanks to him for the work he's putting into in the community. Um, so I started playing in the M13 Innistrad era. Um, Back then I didn't really know a whole lot about the game, just thought the cards were cool and kind of got into it with some of my army buddies and stuff and started messing around with it and kind of got back from there and realized that my brother also played and he got me a little bit more into competitive Magic, and then we both started playing Standard, and from there we played Standard pretty much through the Innistrad RTR block, and from there I kind of just got my love for deck building because, as a lot of you will know, that was just a great block for deck building. There were so many good synergies and so many good cards that worked well together. The three color decks were just amazing. I just had a ton of fun brewing with that. I Actually, my favorite stuff to brew with ever, and probably some of my favorite cards ever, were werewolf cards, and just fell in love with that whole set. So that's pretty much what got me hooked onto the game. And some of my goals as far as the game goes, and as far as Magic in general, is just well, really honestly, to design decks and have them win, but have them be built around cards that aren't necessarily popular or do things that other people think are winning capable, but I like to use odd ways to win the game. Um, like Kevin recently had a Debt to the Deathless deck that the only card I really liked out of the entire deck was Debt to the Deathless, and I built an Orzhov deck around it and went third place with it last week at FNM, and pretty much was so psyched that I'm not going to play it anymore and go move on to something else. So I might actually preview that for you guys at some point too, and show you what the deck does and how it works. It's basically just a mono black ramp that has a few creatures in it that have actually moved over into this deck. Um, but yeah, rogue deck building has pretty much been the only way I've ever gone. I've pretty much never wanted a net deck. To me, it seems like cheating. I don't know. To me, it takes all the creativity out of it if you just take somebody else's ideas and just run with them. I'd much rather have something that I built and know and want to play and have fun playing. Because, I mean, for a while there I did get pretty competitive and wasn't really having fun anymore. And that's when I kind of took a step back and realized if I can't have fun with it, then I shouldn't be doing it. So that's pretty much where I stand now. Um, Once again, some of my favorite things about the game are just synergies and combos and the different ways that cards interact, and I like being able to find those for myself instead of once again looking them up or researching other people's decks and just kind of picking what they do and working with it. Um, in the future, I really kind of hope to work with Kevin a little bit more and maybe swap off some stuff on Rogue Deck Builder and just develop my blog a little bit more. And uh, one of my favorite things to do is on my blog is do spoilers, and that's my favorite season in Magic, and it's kind of driving me nuts right now with not having any spoilers for this next set. Um, and I hope to do some video series in the future now that I'm getting a little bit more into MTGO. I'm kind of new to this whole MTGO and kind of the commentating uh, scene, I guess you could say, and it's pretty new to me. So I hope to develop that a little bit more and do some video series on mostly just how to play Magic and the beginning stuff. Like if your friends, you don't really know how to explain to them how to play the game, I want to do some video series just explaining the cards and what they do and how they function, and just kind of show some very beginning interactions with how to actually play the game. And So this actually, like I said, this deck, it is a kind of an Esper humans deck, but it's not really totally a humans deck because I do have a lot of stuff in here that isn't humans. For example, the Obsidots, which this is really what drove the deck in the first place. Was Obsidot and Blood Baron are like my two all-time favorite cards in Standard right now. I love building around them. I love brewing around them, and anything I can do pretty much to brew around them is basically my focus right now in Standard. While they still exist in Standard, they're going to be my brewing cards. And so Obsidot obviously is a spirit, and Blood Baron is a vampire. So neither one of those are actually humans, so you can't really completely call it a humans deck. I also run Desecration Demons, which also are not humans. So 6 total creatures in the deck that aren't humans, and but that's basically where I started with. Is I started with a Debt to the Deathless deck, and that didn't really work. So I tried doing a mono black splashing white for just Obsidot and Blood Baron, and that ended up falling pretty much on its face. So then I tried mixing them together and doing a really control-y Orzhov deck, which ran Obsidots and Blood Barons, obviously main board. I ran a lot of stuff like Celestial Flares and just a lot of white control stuff. And I mean, it did what I did what I wanted to do, but it didn't seem as interactive and had the big swings that I like to have in my games. And it just, the whole shock value of the Debt to the Deathless. I mean, it was so hard to get off most of the time, or you just pulled the card at the wrong time and it just didn't do what I wanted. So then I took a step back over Christmas break and just kind of like, what do I want to do with this? And I've been wanting to splash blue for Esper for a long time, but I didn't really want to play like the uber control Esper with no creatures. Just didn't really appeal to me at all. So I decided to go with something more like this, in which I looked at Blood Baron, and then I looked at Obsidian, and I'm like, what can I build around these guys? And then I started looking at some of the other cards that I've wanted to use for a while, like Imposing Sovereign, and I've really had a place for Zazzard Necromancer for a long time, and just wanted to brew with him. And I'm like, well, he's black. I'm sure I can do something. And then I started looking at other stuff, like, well, okay, if I'm gonna run him, I've got to run some humans. Sorry, there, I'm gonna take a drink. But so I started looking at other things here and started seeing, well, I like Soldier of the Pantheon. There's so much multicolored, even with the monocolored. There's still a lot of multicolored. And Frontline Medic is human, and I've wanted to use it for a long time. And just the battalion trigger with getting the indestructible, and indestructible has always been one of my favorite mechanics. And Life of Sky Knight was actually one of the hugest cards that my brother said that he thought was just going to go crazy, and it never did. So I kind of wanted to do something with it because of its evasion and detain ability. It's just phenomenal card. I don't understand why it doesn't get played. And then I splashed one of Cartel Aristocrat because I don't really want to see it all the time, but I mean, it really does have the potential to protect itself, and then you get the bonus off of Zathric Necromancer if you stack something else to protect it, so you can keep it around for a long time and still have it be protected from things and get your zombie token as well from stacking something. And then the Desecration Demon, really, because I really honestly can't find anything else that does what it does for its mana cost in the deck. I would love to find a human to fill this slot, so if you have any recommendations, please shout them out, because I mean, he's so good right now. I mean, maybe in Born of the Gods we'll get something that replaces him, but right now I honestly can't find it. So we have our 1-drop in Soldier of the Pantheon, our 2-drop in Sovereign, our 3-drops are the Frontline Medics and the Life Sky Knights, and we have a 2-drop in Cartel Aristocrat as well. We have our 4-drops with Desecration Demons, and we have our 5-drops with the Obsidots and the Blood Barons, so we have a pretty well-rounded creature base here. Our removal suite, that's the #1 reason I splashed the blue, was because It opens up your removal seat so much to things that are so relevant right now in Standard, with the detention spheres, with the supreme verdicts. I mean, we have far and away, which can both be extremely versatile. Um, Doomblade, I don't like running a lot of it, but it is relevant. A lot of mono black out there, but I mean, it's still really relevant. The Hero's Downfalls, I think, is a fantastic card. A little bit more intensive in mana cost than what I usually like to run for removal with the double black, but still doable. But um, it's a pretty complete package. With Supreme Verdict, you get the ability to wipe the board and get all your zombies out of your humans. I've had it be in a game that I just played last night where it was like swung for crazy amounts of damage. They blocked Supreme Verdict right after, so I got all. I mean, it was just insane. They had a whole board full of stuff. I had a whip of Erebos out, so I got a ton of lifelink, and then Supreme Verdict second main and just totally annihilated them and just had a ton of zombies come back. So it was fantastic swing. Um, I do run the Whip of Erebos pretty much solely for the lifelink and its interaction with Obsidat. I mean, it's one of my favorite combos in Standard right now, and I actually found out about it before somebody else told me about it, so it was really cool for me to figure that out. And then for the land base, I mean, just running a lot of shocks, really. 4 of everything in the colors, and then 3 Temple of Deceits, 3 Temples of Silence. I was running the 4th Temple of Silence, but then it just seemed like I was seeing it way too much, and actually ended up drawing 3 of them in one hand one time, and that just totally seemed like too much. I can deal with 2 and a 1 of something else, because I've got to hit the blue more often than not. And then 2 plains and 2 swamps, and 3 mutavaults, because these things can still be really relevant as they become humans, and you can get the 2/2 zombie token afterwards as well, so it could be a chump blocker for a zombie token. So they actually become really relevant, especially late game if you draw them late game as a land. For our sideboard, Glare of Heresy has actually won me a ton of games. I love this card. White is so relevant right now in the format that, I mean, this gets rid of so many things. It gets rid of, Elspeth. It gets rid of your detention spheres. It gets rid of, just a ton of these guys here that just become problem children later on. It gets rid of Blood Baron. It gets rid of just so many threats. And this is actually one of my favorite cards. I just think is really underestimated, and I see being really relevant in these games. Is Council the Absolute. I've got it as my sideboard for the Desecration Demons. It's a 4-drop human that I was contemplating running main board, but I don't think I would ever really want to see it the first game because I don't know what they're casting to be able to name. I haven't seen their deck, and I haven't seen what's in it to be able to know what I want to name to let them not cast. Unless, of course, it's obviously a mirror match and you can tell what they're going to be casting and just hope that you name something that they have in their deck. And so the second one is Sin Collector. I like this card so much because of its valuable ability against the other Esper decks. Really is the biggest threat, and the Azorius decks are also really big threats. So it gets rid of some of the bigger spells that they can use against me and throw my game off. The Underworld Connections I like just for the card draw. I do have, actually, I usually run an Erebos in here on the main deck, one of an Erebos, which I don't have right now, so I'm not running it, but it actually is extremely relevant for card draw. It does its work times 2, really, because it does get you a lot of card draw, and it becomes a huge presence if you get enough things on the field. But the Underworld Connections is really if I run into situations where I need to draw cards and outdraw my opponent. Another Supreme Verdict just in case I need it more in a game to get rid of bigger creatures, or if it's a ramp deck that I need to get rid of stuff really fast and keep board presence. 2 more Heroes Downfall, which these actually might end up coming out for something in the lines of a negate or a counter spell of some sort if the need arises. I don't really know if I really want to have any more removal. And Blood Baron, I mean, I want to run a second of him just because he can be really relevant in mirror decks, and I really, once again, he's one of my favorite cards, so I want the ability to have a second one of him available if I need it. And then, of course, the 3 slot seasons are pretty much self-explanatory. They do their own work, and against Esper decks and Azorius decks, they just tear them apart. Any other creature decks, you're not really ever going to want to see them, which is why I don't mainboard them. It's because I don't necessarily want them against heavy creature decks. So I want to kind of see what their deck is before I throw in the Thoughtseize to deal with things that I may see as being problematic. Sorry about that. Taking another drink real fast. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the deck. I'm gonna go ahead and run a couple of decks for this to show you kind of how I play this and how it works. Once again, pardon me if I make a few mistakes. I am new to this commentary, and it is a little different for me talking and trying to play at the same time. And I will try not to bore you with general lapses of silence, and I will try to keep my tone controlled, because I do tend to get a little bit aggravated if I get kind of caught up in my words and I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. So it's going to be kind of a new adventure for me. I do want to kind of give a special thanks to Kevin from Rogue Deck Builder, that I can't talk today, for giving me this opportunity to kind of showcase my deck. And a little bit of backstory about this is I brewed this over Christmas, and the very next day after I posted this up on my tapped out account, a guy posted back on it and goes, "Hey, this looks just like the Esper Humans deck that won Japan." And I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me? Like, seriously, I brewed this awesome deck, and I play around with cards that I've wanted to use for forever, and it's like 4 cards off of this guy's deck." I mean, seriously, you can look it up. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, I run different things than him. He doesn't run the Heroes Downfalls. He doesn't run the Blood Barons. He doesn't run the Frontline Medics. He runs one of the Sky Knight things instead. And I don't think he runs the Whips either. He might run the Whips. But I mean, it was almost ridiculously identical, and I was a little bit put off by it, and I almost just kind of gave up on this deck idea and was just like, you know what, screw it, I'll brew something else. I don't want people to think I'm a net decker. But I talked to Kevin about it, and he's like, yeah, it happens all the time. You can't really get bent out of shape about it. And he was still willing to feature me, even though, you know, it is a pretty popular deck now. But just as a disclaimer, I did come up with this idea all on my own. I did not copy this from anyone. I spent a long time brewing this, and it does work the way I want it to work. And it does really well most of the time in most matchups, as long as you don't forget to mulligan when you have a little hand. But he did let me borrow quite a few of these cards for this MTGO version, because generally I use cockatrices because I'm not rich, and that's how I playtest most of my decks. But due to copyright issues and stuff, obviously he can't have that on his channel. So he did let me borrow a ton of these cards, and I do really appreciate that, and I'll be giving them back to him as soon as I'm done making this video. We'll continue to hopefully build my collection and be able to offer more videos on my own channel, which is, once again, MTG The Journey. You can find me. I have a blog, and I also have a YouTube channel as well. And I'm on Tapped Out if you ever want to hit me up on there. Shadowland on there, pretty high up there. I'm an admin, so you can find me fairly easy. I post just about every day on something. So, but that's pretty much it for this deck tech. If you have any more questions, don't feel free to just ask about it in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you and respond. But thanks again to Kevin, and I look forward to previewing this for you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed the series. Thanks.